I offer it to you as a best practice in case you're at a liturgy anytime soon, And of course, 50, 60 years ago, the only response to something like that from sister was a 2-word answer. Yes, sister. That's what the pastor did, and he sat down. I tell that story to begin our time together because I think it has something to do with leadership. It has something to do with stewarding today to sustain tomorrow. It has something to do with the construction, deconstruction, and reconstruction about which Liz just shared so beautifully with us. I think it has something to do with listening, like that little girl did. Listen to what the message was. She looked around. She paid attention. She paid attention. And then she addressed the reality. And she acted accordingly. Listen, look around, pay attention, address the reality, and act accordingly. I begin with that because I think in some ways, brothers and sisters, we are at any point in this moment in which we find ourselves, we are either the presider who is speaking to a group that is not there. We are the sister in the pew who is realizing something needs to happen here. We are the little guy in the front pew who is just kind of realizing that whatever's going on out there has nothing to do with him. And I think in many cases, each of us in this room is called to get that little tap on the shoulder, to listen, to look around, to pay attention, to address the reality, and to act accordingly. What I am offering for your consideration is that what time is it? It is time to look around, to pay attention, to address the reality, and to act accordingly. And so, this very sophisticated presentation, I want you to know this, okay? I have some socks here, obviously. And the reason why I have socks is because it's a great example of the function that we refer to as change. When anybody here have a teenage son ever? Okay, yeah. You're not too happy to admit it, are you? But I don't think you've ever said to your son, go upstairs and transform your socks, or go upstairs and transform your underwear, We say, go change your socks, change your hairdo, change your diet. Change is good. But by definition, it is that activity that you stand in the present moment, like you stand in 2017, and you literally turn around in your mind, and you use 2016, 2015, 2014, 1993, 1856, 1650. You use the past as your reference point. Change always results in the same form and the same function. When we look at the natural, incredible, miraculous process called metamorphosis that goes from a caterpillar to a butterfly, we are not talking about tweaking. A butterfly is not a tweaked caterpillar. It's not a caterpillar that has been painted a different color or updated or has a new set of bylaws. It is, in fact, a totally different form and function. It's the best example of transformation, because transformation is that activity where you use the future as a reference point. The transformation is all or nothing. It is a total surrender of all. It's a trust in mystery. It moves always towards the unknown, always towards the unknown. And probably the last two phrases on this slide are the most important. Transformation always results in a new form and a new function. Always. New form, new function. Now, I have a little person in our family. She's a queen, actually, and she's 10. Does anybody have queens in their family who are 10 years old? Yeah. Her name's Mackenzie. And she told me one time, she said, Aunt Carol, do you know what happens in a chrysalis? I said, no, Kens, what happens? She said, Aunt Carol, it's disgusting. I said, really? She said, yes, Aunt Carol, do you know that the eyesight of a caterpillar is of no use to the eyesight of a butterfly? Did you know that the digestive system of a caterpillar is of no use to the digestive system of a butterfly? Did you know that the mobility system of a caterpillar is of no use to the mobility system of a butterfly? Did you know that the brain of a caterpillar is of no use to the brain of a butterfly? I said, no, Kenz, I did not know that. She said, well, Aunt Carol, you should have been in my 4th grade science class, because that's what we learned. But I think from that little 4th grade science class, I gleaned an incredible amount of wisdom. What we know about this process of metamorphosis for a butterfly, imagine what it is for a radical response to the gospel being transformed. But for the metamorphosis process, you see that little bunch of black stuff up at the top of that? That's the second shedding of the skin of the caterpillar. And if you're looking for something to do someday and you want to look like you're doing some work at your computer, just YouTube metamorphosis. And you'll actually see this chrysalis gyrate. It moves back and forth like crazy. Very hard work to shake off that last piece of skin. Because until it does that, it can't move to this stage. And only when it is perfectly still is the metamorphosis able to happen. I want to invite you to consider your institute back home, and what last little piece of skin are you working really hard to hold on to? Because I can guarantee you are. And the work right now in stewarding and sustaining has something to do with letting go. So I encourage you to just kind of look at that little piece of skin up there and say, I wonder what I'm holding on to. I wonder what I'm holding on to in my family life. I wonder what I'm holding on to in my relationship with my spouse. I wonder what I'm holding on to in what I think my job is. Because in moments of transformation, the transformation cannot happen until we let go. And so I offer just a couple of questions there at the end, which you can take a look at, and I think Bobby's going to invite us into some quiet in a moment. But I want to go back to the story that I started with about the little girl that paid attention. She listened, she looked around, she paid attention, she assessed the reality, and she acted accordingly. I think we're all called to be that little girl, that young person. And I want to close with a story about the Queen, about Mackenzie. She's in 5th grade now, but when she was in 2nd grade, I asked her one day, I said, Kenz, how's school? It's good, Aunt Carol. I said, what's so good about it? I'm a leader. I said, really? Yes, I'm a leader. I said, and why do you say that? The teacher tells me that I'm a leader. Well, of course, I started to say, what do you do and all of that. And eventually, this child figured out, she said, wait a minute, Aunt Carol. This is what I got. Wait a minute, Aunt Carol. It's true that the teacher is encouraging all the children to be their best. But I am a leader. I said, and what makes you think that, Kenz? And she stopped for a couple seconds. She said, well, Aunt Carol, I think it's 2 things. First, the teacher always asks me to go first to do some things. And second, she asks me because she knows I'm not afraid to be wrong. I think by virtue of you being in this room, brothers and sisters, you are leaders. You are leaders. I'm encouraging you to go first, to begin thinking about the transformation of this life, and to get off the stick of the preservation of the Historical Institute. The reason I say that is, if you attend to the transformation of the life, what to do with the Historical Institute will become crystal clear. If in fact your perspective is on the Historical Institute, not only will that not be clear, But probably the biggest challenge will be that the mission and the charism of that institute will die by default. The church whom we love has an office in Rome for religious. It's called the Congregation for Religious. Do you know that every historical institute that goes out of existence, that comes to the completion of its historical moment, that the mission and charism of that institute is kept on the books in that office for 100 years? Point. The mission and the charism does not belong to you. It does not belong to your historical institute. And we have no right to take that gift that's been given to the church for the world. We have no right to take it to its grave simply because we were focused on change and not transformation. So before somebody does come from the back of the room and come up here and tell me to sit down and stop that talking, I'm going to take a cue and I'm going to sit down and stop that talking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carol. I was watching the time, but I didn't dare step up and say, excuse me. We've heard two powerful stories today. And now it's time for the third story, the story that we tell in this room, woven from the narratives of what you've heard. What I invite you to do for a while is just to pause in a reflective moment, particularly to sense where the spark of the divine vibrated within you, resonated within you in what you heard. And it's a question for all of us in this room. Whenever you feel ready, I invite you to turn to a companion or 2 or 3 people at your table, or a table conversation, whatever feels comfortable. Just picking up at maybe some of the questions that both Liz and Carol have left us with, or it may be something of telling that story of what stirred in you. Let's begin to see what third story we tell here. And as we move into this for the next 10 minutes or so, do feel free, if there was a big queue at the washrooms when we're coming back from coffee, do feel free as a comfort break just to slip out and come back into the conversation. But it's not a formal comfort break because we'll never get back into the room. But do feel free to slip out if you need to. We'll spend some time in that, and then Liz and Carol will be here at the front, but it's a third story we're going to tell. It's not like question and answer, but to see how do we weave something here? How do we create something, co-create something here in this room that's woven out of all the stories that are here? But the next step in it is just to begin sharing with a person beside you, or 2 or 3, or a table conversation, whatever feels comfortable, for the next 10 minutes or so.